They tell you divorce is an ending, a clean break, a line drawn between who you were and who you'll become. They lied. My name is Gabriella Romano, Moretti for 3 years, then back to Romano when I couldn't survive being his wife anymore. And I've spent the last 12 months learning that you can sign papers, move across town, rebuild your entire life, and still feel like half of you is missing. Welcome back to Mafia Folklore. Before this story begins, tell me something. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? It helps us know how far the legend of the Mafia travels tonight. Now, let's begin. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in Federal Hill, Providence, when everything fell apart. I should have seen it coming. The dizziness that had been getting worse. The way my vision would blur when I stood up too fast. The exhaustion that went beyond normal new mother tired and into something darker, heavier. But I'd been ignoring warning signs for 12 months. What was one more? Isabella was crying, that sharp, piercing newborn cry that cuts straight through sleep and sanity. 3 months old, my beautiful girl with her father's dark eyes and my stubborn chin. She didn't know that she was the secret I'd kept. The reason I'd stopped answering my ex-husband's calls. The truth I'd been too afraid to tell. I pulled myself out of bed, every movement feeling like I was underwater. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom in a 3-story walk-up on Atwells Avenue, right in the heart of Federal Hill, where the scent of Italian bakeries mixed with car exhaust and the ghosts of old-world traditions. I'd chosen it specifically because it was Matteo's territory. And somehow, that made me feel safer even though I'd left him to escape his world. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Shh, baby, Mama's coming," I whispered, but my voice sounded far away. I made it 3 steps before the room tilted. The last thing I remember was reaching for Isabella's crib, trying to make sure she was safe, and then the floor was rushing up to meet me, and everything went dark. I woke up to fluorescent lights and the steady beep of machines. Rhode Island Hospital. I knew it immediately. The smell of antiseptic, the industrial ceiling tiles, the distant sound of PA system announcements. I'd been here before, 3 months ago, when I'd given birth alone while the father's name sat blank on the birth certificate because I was too proud and too scared to write it down. "Ms. Romano?" A nurse appeared beside my bed. Her expression kind but concerned. "You're awake. Good. You gave us quite a scare." "Isabella?" My voice cracked. "My daughter, where's—" "She's fine. Perfectly healthy. Your neighbor heard you fall and called 911. She's with the baby now in the waiting room." The nurse adjusted my IV. "But Gabriella, your blood pressure dropped dangerously low. You're severely anemic, likely postpartum complications that went untreated. You need rest, monitoring, and you can't be alone with an infant right now." "I don't have anyone," I said automatically. It was the truth I'd been living with. My parents were gone. My sister was overseas, and the man who should have been there. "What about Isabella's father?" the nurse asked gently. "Is he in the picture?" I closed my eyes. "It's complicated. Most things worth having are." She paused. "We need to contact someone, Gabriella, for your daughter's sake. If you're hospitalized, if something happens, there needs to be another parent we can reach." My heart was hammering. I haven't spoken to him in a year. "Maybe it's time you did." I gave them his number from memory. Hadn't deleted it, hadn't been able to, even though I'd stared at it 100 times, thumb hovering over the delete button. I didn't hear the actual conversation. Just knew that somewhere across Providence, in the Moretti estate overlooking the city, a phone was ringing. And the man who'd once promised to love me forever, who I'd walked away from to save myself, was about to learn that his world had just changed forever. The nurse came back 20 minutes later. "He's on his way," she said quietly. He sounded intense. I laughed, and it came out broken. That's one word for it. Intense. Matteo Moretti was a lot of things. Powerful. He controlled half of Providence's underground operations. Dangerous. People crossed the street when they saw him coming. Feared. His name was whispered in rooms where grown men learned to be afraid. But to me, he'd been something else entirely. He'd been my husband, my lover, the man who'd held me through nightmares and made me laugh until I cried. The man whose touch could make me forget every reason I had to be scared. And the man whose world had nearly destroyed me. I'd met Matteo Moretti 4 years ago at a charity gala in downtown Providence. I was waitressing, working my way through a degree I'd never finish. He was there in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car, surrounded by men who moved like shadows and women who looked at him like he was salvation and sin wrapped in Italian wool. Our eyes met across a room full of Rhode Island's elite, and I felt it. That pull, that recognition, like something in me knew something in him. He'd found me after my shift ended. "You're Gabriella," he'd said, not a question. "And you're trouble," I'd replied. He'd smiled. "The best kind." He wasn't wrong. We fell in love the way people do in movies, fast, reckless, all-consuming. He courted me like I was precious, protected me like I was fragile, loved me like I was the only woman in the world. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony at Federal Hills St. John's Church, and I became Gabriella Moretti. For 3 years, I tried to be his wife. Tried to accept the late nights and the secrets and the violence that lived in the shadows of his world. Tried to ignore the fear that sat in my chest every time he walked out the door, wondering if he'd come back. But fear is corrosive. It eats at love from the inside. The night I left, there'd been blood on his shirt that wasn't his. He'd come home at 3 a.m., eyes empty, and when I'd asked what happened, he'd just said, "Nothing you need to worry about." But I did worry. I worried every second of every day. So I packed a bag, left a note, and filed for divorce. He didn't fight it. Just signed the papers with hands that had once held me so gently and let me go. I told myself it was for the best. Told myself I was choosing survival. I didn't know I was already pregnant with his daughter. I heard him before I saw him. The commotion in the hallway, raised voices, someone trying to tell him visiting hours, and then his voice, low and dangerous. "That's my wife in there." "Ex-wife, sir." "My wife." Then the door opened, and Matteo Moretti walked into my hospital room like a storm given human form. He looked exactly the same. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes like midnight that could be tender or terrifying depending on his mood. The same expensive suit, the same presence that made rooms feel smaller. But there was something different too. New lines around his eyes, shadows under them like he hadn't been sleeping well. He looked like a man who'd been surviving, not living. Just like me. Our eyes met. 12 months of silence, 12 months of absence, 12 months of pretending I was fine without him. All of it shattered in an instant. "Matteo," I whispered. He crossed the room in 3 strides, and for a moment I thought he might grab me, shake me, demand answers. Instead, he stopped at my bedside, hands clenched at his sides, and said in a voice I'd never heard before, raw, broken, devastated, "Tell me it's true. Tell me I have a daughter." Tears burned my eyes. "Yes." Where is she? With my neighbor, in the waiting room. He turned toward the door like he was going to run, to find her, to see this child he didn't know existed. Then he stopped, turned back, and the look on his face nearly killed me. Why? The word was barely more than breath. Why didn't you tell me, Gabby? I'd known this conversation was coming, had rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head during late-night feedings and early morning diaper changes. But now, looking at him, all my practiced explanations felt hollow. Because I was afraid, I said simply. Because I left you to escape your world, and finding out I was pregnant felt like fate was laughing at me. Because I didn't want to trap you, or trap myself, or give me a choice. His voice was harder now. You decided for both of us. You decided I didn't deserve to know I had a child. You deserved to be free, I shot back. From me, from responsibility, from my own daughter? He leaned forward, and I saw it then. Not just anger, but pain. Deep, aching, soul-destroying pain. You think I wanted freedom, Gabriella? I let you go because I thought it was what you needed. But you were carrying my child, and you didn't even give me the chance to... He stopped, closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but somehow more intense. What's her name? Isabella, I whispered. Isabella Grace. Isabella. He said it like a prayer. Can I see her? I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He left the room without another word, and I lay there in that hospital bed, listening to the machines beep and my heart break, knowing that everything was about to change. Again, have you ever kept a secret from someone because you thought it would protect them? How did it turn out? Tell us in the comments. I don't know how long he was gone. Time moved strangely in that hospital room. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe it was seconds. All I knew was that my heart was racing and my hands were shaking, and somewhere down the hall, Matteo Moretti was meeting his daughter for the first time. Our daughter. The daughter I'd kept from him for 9 months of pregnancy and 3 months of her life. God, what had I done? When he came back, he was different. Not angry anymore, not hurt. Something else entirely. Something raw and vulnerable and terrifying in its intensity. He stood in the doorway and his eyes were wet. Matteo Moretti, the man who'd built an empire on fear and control. The man who never showed weakness, never let anyone see him break. He was crying. She's perfect, he said, his voice wrecked. Gabriella, she looks just like you. She has your nose, your chin, but my eyes. He pressed his hand against the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. I held her. The nurse let me hold her, and she grabbed my finger. This tiny little hand just wrapped around my finger like she knew I was her father. The tears I'd been holding back spilled over. Matteo, I missed it. He moved closer, and I could see it now, not just tears, but anguish. I missed the pregnancy, the ultrasounds, the first kick. I missed her birth, her first cry. 3 months of her life, Gabriella. 3 months I'll never get back. I know. Do you? His voice cracked. Do you know what it feels like to find out you have a child and realize you've already missed so much? To know that she's been in this world for 92 days and you weren't there? That she's learned to recognize voices and faces and smile, and yours wasn't one of them? Each word was a knife. I'm sorry, I whispered. Matteo, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me those days back. He sank into the chair beside my bed, and I'd never seen him look so defeated. But it's not about me anymore, is it? It's about her, Isabella, my daughter. Our daughter, I corrected softly. Our daughter. He looked at me then, really looked. What happened, Gabby? Why are you here? The nurse said something about complications. I explained it. The exhaustion, the dizziness, the anemia that I'd been ignoring because I didn't have time to be sick. Because single mothers don't get sick days. Because I'd been too stubborn and too proud to ask for help. His jaw clenched tighter with every word. You've been doing this alone, he said when I finished. Working, caring for an infant, dealing with postpartum complications. Alone. In a walk-up apartment in Federal Hill where the heat barely works and the locks are a joke. How do you know about my apartment? He had the grace to look slightly guilty. I've known where you were since the day you left me, Gabriella. I respected your choice. I stayed away like you wanted. You've been watching me? Protecting you. His voice was firm. There's a difference. My men keep the neighborhood safe. Make sure nobody bothers you. But I never approached, never interfered. You wanted space. I gave you space. Even though it killed me. Something in my chest loosened and tightened at the same time. I didn't know, I said. You weren't supposed to. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But that changes now. Everything changes now. You're not doing this alone anymore, Gabby. Whether you like it or not, whether you want me in your life or not, I'm Isabella's father, and I will be in her life. Every single day. Matteo? No. His voice was steel. You made your choice 12 months ago. You chose to leave, and I let you. But you don't get to make this choice. Not about Isabella. She deserves a father, and I deserve the chance to be one. He was right. I hated it, but he was right. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying you're being released tomorrow morning, and you're not going back to that apartment. You're coming home with me, you and Isabella both, until you're recovered, until I know you're safe and healthy and she's being cared for properly. It's not a request, Gabriella. His eyes met mine, and there was no room for argument. You want to hate me? Fine. You want to keep your distance? I'll give you all the space you need in a house with 12 rooms. But I will not let my daughter spend another night in a place where her mother might collapse and no one will find her for hours. I have a neighbor. Your neighbor is 73 years old, barely speaks English, and has arthritis. Of course he knew. What if next time you fall and she doesn't hear? What if next time Isabella needs something and you can't get to her? What then? The fear I'd been living with, the secret terror that kept me awake at night, suddenly had a voice. I've been careful, I said weakly. You've been lucky. He stood, moved to the window, looked out at the Providence skyline just starting to lighten with dawn. Luck runs out, Gabby. I've seen it happen too many times, and I cannot let it happen to you. To her. Silence filled the room. Outside, I heard the hospital waking up. Footsteps in hallways, distant voices. The ordinary sounds of people starting their day, unaware that mine was shattering and rebuilding itself simultaneously. If I agree, I said carefully, this is temporary. Just until I'm better. If that's what you need to tell yourself. And we set boundaries. You don't get to just take over my life again. Our life, he corrected. We have a daughter together, Gabriella. Our lives are already intertwined, have been since the moment she was conceived. He wasn't wrong. 1 month, I said. Give me 1 month to recover. Then we figure out what comes next. 1 month, he agreed, but something in his expression told me he had no intention of letting us go after 30 days. Maybe I didn't want him to. Maybe that's what scared me most. He left at dawn to make arrangements. The nurse came in an hour later with Isabella, and I fed her and changed her and held her close, breathing in that sweet baby smell that had become my entire world. Your daddy met you last night, I whispered against her soft hair. And he loves you already. I could see it in his eyes. You've done what I couldn't, little one. You've already made him better. Isabella made a small sound and grabbed my finger, just like she'd grabbed Matteo's. My heart broke and healed in the same moment. By the time visiting hours officially started, Matteo was back, and he wasn't alone. He brought a woman with him, 50s, professional, kind eyes. She introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Chen, a pediatrician. I asked her to check Isabella, Matteo explained. Make sure everything's okay, that you haven't missed any appointments or... I've taken her to all her appointments, I said defensively. She's up to date on everything. I'm not neglecting her. I know. His voice was gentle. But you've been neglecting yourself, and I need to make sure you haven't missed anything because you were too exhausted to notice. It should have felt like an insult. Instead, it felt like someone finally caring. Dr. Chen examined Isabella thoroughly, while Matteo watched with an intensity that would have been intimidating if it wasn't so clearly rooted in love. She pronounced our daughter perfectly healthy, developing beautifully, clearly well cared for. You've done an excellent job, Dr. Chen told me warmly. Especially under difficult circumstances. But Mr. Moretti is right. You need support. Postpartum recovery is no joke, and trying to do it alone is dangerous. After she left, Matteo pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. I had the East Wing prepared, he said. Your old room, plus a nursery next door. Everything Isabella needs, crib, changing table, monitors. I had it delivered this morning. I stared at the photos. The nursery was beautiful. Soft whites and gentle grays, nothing ostentatious, just perfect. Safe. Warm. Everything I'd wanted to give her but couldn't afford. When did you have time to do all this? I asked. I didn't sleep. He pocketed his phone. I spent the night making calls, making arrangements, making sure everything would be ready for you both. Sleep seemed less important than making sure my daughter had a home. She has a home, I said quietly. She has an apartment. His eyes held mine. There's a difference. And before you argue, I know you've done everything you could with what you had. I'm not criticizing. I'm offering something better. For both of you. Pride warred with practicality. Practicality won. Okay, I said. 1 month. 1 month, he echoed, but we both knew it was a lie. You don't spend a month in someone's home, raising a child together, sharing midnight feedings and early mornings, and walk away unchanged. You don't co-parent with the man you never stopped loving and pretend it's temporary. You don't give your daughter's father a chance to be her father without giving him a chance to be more. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. They released me that afternoon. Matteo had brought a car seat, top of the line, already installed, and helped me strap Isabella in with hands that were surprisingly gentle for someone so dangerous. The drive from Rhode Island Hospital to the Moretti estate in the hills above Federal Hill took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of watching Providence slide past my window, of Isabella sleeping peacefully in the back seat, of Matteo stealing glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking. You can change your mind, he said as we pulled through the gates. If this is too much, if being here brings back too many memories, I can find somewhere else, somewhere neutral. I'm fine, I lied, because I wasn't fine. Being here, in this place I'd once called home, where I'd been happy and terrified in equal measure, it was overwhelming. But Isabella needed stability. And maybe I did too. He parked in front of the house. Sprawling, elegant, everything my apartment wasn't. Then he came around, opened my door, and held out his hand. I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and familiar and painful in their rightness. "Welcome home, Gabby," he said softly, and despite everything, the divorce, the separation, the secrets and lies and fear, a part of me whispered, yes, home. The first night was the hardest. Not because of anything Matteo did, not because the house felt foreign or the memories were too sharp, but because it felt too easy, too right, too much like coming home to a place I'd been lost without. He'd set up everything perfectly. My room was exactly as I'd left it. No, better. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. The bed made with those expensive sheets I'd loved. My favorite books still on the shelf. And next door, through a connecting door, was Isabella's nursery. "I kept your things," Matteo said quietly, standing in the doorway while I took it all in. I told myself I'd get rid of them eventually, box them up, donate them. But I couldn't. Every time I tried, I'd remember you curled up reading by that window. Or the way you'd hum while getting dressed. And He stopped. I left it all exactly as it was. Like maybe if I didn't change anything, you'd come back. My throat tightened. "Matteo?" "You don't have to say anything." He stepped back. "Get some rest. I'll take the first shift with Isabella. You need to recover." "You don't know how to—" "Then I'll learn." His voice was firm. "I've spent 3 months missing out on her life. I'm not wasting another second." I woke up at 2 a.m. to silence. Wrong. Isabella should have woken up by now, hungry and fussy. I shot out of bed, heart pounding, and rushed to the nursery. The sight that greeted me stopped me cold. Matteo sat in the rocking chair by the window, Isabella cradled in his arms, feeding her a bottle with intense concentration. His shirt was off. I'd learned later that skin-to-skin contact was something he'd researched obsessively in the 6 hours since bringing us home. His dark hair was messy. His expression was soft in a way I'd only seen a handful of times in our marriage. He was humming, quietly, an old Italian lullaby I recognized from his childhood. "You're supposed to be resting," he said without looking up. I woke up and she wasn't crying. "Because I got to her first." He glanced at me then, and something in his eyes made my breath catch. "I've been sitting here for 3 hours. I changed her diaper. Took me 4 tries to get it right. Fed her, burped her, and now we're just existing together, getting to know each other." I moved closer. Isabella's tiny hand was wrapped around his finger. She was staring up at him with those dark Moretti eyes, completely content. "She likes you," I whispered. "She tolerates me." But he smiled. "Gabby, I've negotiated $1,000,000 deals. I've stared down men who wanted me dead. But nothing has ever terrified me like holding this little girl and knowing I'm responsible for her. That she's mine to protect. Welcome to parenthood. Is it always like this? This feeling like your heart is walking around outside your body?" "Every single day." I sat on the ottoman across from him. "It's exhausting and beautiful and terrifying all at once. You've been doing this alone." Not a question, an acknowledgement. For 3 months, I managed. You survived. His eyes found mine. There's a difference, Gabby, and you shouldn't have had to just survive. You should have had help, support, me. The words hung between us. I thought I was protecting everyone, I said softly. You from responsibility you didn't ask for. Isabella from the danger of your world. Myself from getting hurt again. Did it work? No. The admission hurt. I was lonely and scared and constantly worried I was failing her. And I still couldn't stop thinking about you, wondering if you were safe, if you missed me, if you'd moved on. I didn't. He said it simply, like a fact. I tried. God knows I tried. But everything reminded me of you. The coffee you liked. The way sunlight hit the bedroom in the morning. The sound of rain. I'd reach for you in bed and you wouldn't be there. And every single time it felt like the first time all over again. Tears burned my eyes. Then why didn't you fight for me? When I filed for divorce, you just let me go. Because you were right. His voice was rough. About my world, about the danger, about how loving me meant living with fear. I couldn't change that, Gabby. I couldn't promise you I'd always come home safe. So I let you go because I thought that's what love meant. Setting you free. And now? Now I have a daughter? He looked down at Isabella, who'd fallen asleep against his chest. And I realized that love isn't about setting people free. It's about fighting for them, protecting them, being there even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. What are you saying? I'm saying I won't make the same mistake twice. His eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. I'm saying that for the next 30 days, I'm going to show you that I can be the man you need, the father Isabella needs, and then you can decide if it's enough. If I'm enough. My heart was pounding. And if I decide you're not, then I'll respect it. Pain flickered across his face. But I'll still be her father. I'll still be in your life, and I'll still love you, Gabriella. Because that's not something I can turn off, no matter how many papers we sign. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your heart and taking a risk on love? What helped you decide? Tell us in the comments. The days that followed fell into a rhythm I hadn't expected. Matteo was present, not just physically, but emotionally. He woke up for every feeding, changed diapers without complaint, researched everything obsessively. Sleep schedules, developmental milestones, the best way to soothe a fussy baby. I'd catch him reading parenting books at 3 a.m., Isabella sleeping on his chest. He converted his office into a space where he could work while watching her. Moved meetings around her nap times. Turned down business dinners because my daughter needs me. The fearsome Matteo Moretti had become a completely different person. Or maybe he'd always been this person, and fatherhood just gave him permission to show it. 1 week became 2. My strength returned slowly. The anemia improved with proper rest and nutrition. And somewhere in the chaos of midnight feedings and diaper changes and the exhausting beauty of caring for a newborn, Matteo and I started talking, really talking, about the marriage, about why I'd really left, about the night I'd seen blood on his shirt and realized I couldn't live in constant fear. I was terrified every time you walked out the door, I admitted one night. We were sitting on the balcony of my room, baby monitor between us, Isabella finally sleeping soundly. I'd imagine every worst-case scenario. You getting shot, arrested, killed, and I'd think about what would happen to me, how I'd survive losing you, and it just consumed me. I know. he said quietly. I could see it in your eyes. The way you'd hold me a little tighter before I left. The way you'd stay awake until I came home. I was killing you slowly, just by being who I am. You weren't the problem, Matteo. Your world was. They're the same thing, Gabby. You can't separate the man from the life he leads. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I've been thinking about what I want, about what kind of father I want to be for Isabella, what kind of example I want to set. And maybe it's time for changes. He looked at me. I can't walk away completely. There are responsibilities, debts, alliances, but I can step back, delegate more, make it clear that my family comes first. Family, I repeated softly. You and Isabella. His hand found mine in the dark. That's my family. That's what matters. The rest is just business. It's not just business, Matteo. It's dangerous. Everything worth having is dangerous. His thumb brushed across my knuckles. Loving you was dangerous. Having Isabella is dangerous. Living at all is dangerous. But I'd rather face those dangers with you than be safe and alone. I wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't that simple. But maybe it was. Maybe love was always going to be a risk. The question was whether it was worth taking. 3 weeks in, something shifted. I came downstairs one morning to find Matteo making breakfast. Actual breakfast, not just coffee. While Isabella watched from her bouncer on the counter. You're cooking, I said, surprised. Attempting to cook. He gestured at the stove. I'm making frittata, your favorite. Well, I'm trying. I may have called my mother 3 times. The domesticity of it. Matteo Moretti, dangerous mafia boss, making breakfast while talking to his mother on speakerphone about egg ratios, was so absurd and perfect I started laughing. What? He asked, but he was smiling too. Nothing, just this. You. It's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Awkwardness, tension. Fighting about custody or schedules or us falling back into old patterns? He plated the frittata. It actually looked good, and brought it to the table. Gabby, I'm not that man anymore, the one who let pride and fear keep him from fighting for what he wanted. I'm different now. Because of Isabella? Because of both of you. He sat across from me, and the morning light caught his face just right. She gave me purpose, but you gave me hope. The hope that maybe broken things can be fixed, that maybe second chances are real. I took a bite of the frittata. It was perfect. Of course it was. Everything about this was perfect, and terrifying, and wonderful. Matteo, I said carefully, what happens when the month is up? I don't know. Honesty. But I know what I hope happens. I hope you'll stay. I hope we can figure out how to be a family. Not because we have to, but because we want to. And the danger? Your world? I'm working on it. His eyes were serious. I've already started delegating, making changes. It won't happen overnight, but I'm committed to building a life where you don't have to be afraid. Where Isabella grows up safe. Can you promise that? No. More honesty. But I can promise I'll try every single day, and I can promise that whatever happens, I'll never let you face it alone again. It wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't even close to what I'd asked for when I left him. But somehow, it was enough. That night, after Isabella was asleep and the house was quiet, I found Matteo in his study. He looked up when I entered, surprise and something like hope crossing his face. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much on my mind. I closed the door behind me. Can we talk? Always. I sat across from his desk, this barrier between us that felt both necessary and absurd. I've been thinking, I started, about us, about what you said, about second chances. He went very still. And I'm scared. The admission felt like relief. I'm terrified that if I let myself love you again, everything will fall apart like it did before. That I'll lose myself in worry. That something will happen to you, and I'll have to explain to Isabella why her father isn't coming home. I'm scared too, he said quietly. You? Scared? Terrified. He came around the desk, knelt in front of my chair. I'm scared that you'll leave again, that I'll fail you both, that I won't be enough. But Gabby, I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear win. Of Isabella growing up in 2 separate homes when we could be a family? His hands found mine. I love you, he said. I never stopped, and I know it's not enough by itself. I know love doesn't fix everything, but maybe it's a start. Maybe it's enough to build on. I looked at this man, dangerous and gentle, powerful and vulnerable, the father of my child and the love of my life, and I made a choice. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Okay, let's try. Tears spilled over. Let's figure out how to be a family. Let's take the risk. Because you're right. I'm more scared of not trying than I am of trying and failing. He pulled me down, kissed me like he'd been starving for it. Like 12 months of separation had been 12 years, and for the first time in a year, I kissed him back without fear. Just hope. We had 23 days. 23 days of pretending we could build a life insulated from the reality of who Matteo was. 23 days of morning coffee and midnight feedings and slowly learning to trust again. 23 days before his world came crashing back in. It started with a phone call. I was in the nursery, changing Isabella, when I heard Matteo's voice in the hallway. Low, urgent, the tone he used when something was wrong. My stomach dropped. He appeared in the doorway, and one look at his face told me everything. What happened? I asked, picking up Isabella instinctively, holding her close. Someone knows. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. About Isabella, about you being here. Who? Carmine DeLuca. The name was bitter on his tongue. Old rival from Boston. He's been testing my territory for months, looking for weaknesses. And apparently, he found one. My blood went cold. What does he want? What they always want. Leverage, power, a way to hurt me. Matteo crossed to the window, looked out at the grounds. He sent a message. Pictures of you and Isabella leaving Dr. Chen's office yesterday. Clear shots. Professional surveillance. The room tilted. He was watching us? His people were. Matteo's voice was deadly calm, which somehow made it worse. And now he knows exactly what you mean to me. What she means to me. This was it. The moment I'd feared. The reason I'd left in the first place. What does he want? I repeated. Me, out of Providence. My territory, my operations, everything I've built. He turned to face me. Or he goes after my family. The word hung in the air. Family. When? My voice was steadier than I felt. He gave me 48 hours to decide. And if you don't give him what he wants? Matteo didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next 24 hours were a nightmare of preparation. Matteo had men stationed everywhere. Inside the house, on the grounds, at every entrance. He moved us to an interior room with no windows, installed additional security systems, made contingency plans for every possible scenario. I watched him transform back into the man I'd left. Cold, calculating, dangerous, and I hated it. Not because he was protecting us, but because I could see what it was costing him. The way his shoulders tensed, the way he barely slept, the way he'd hold Isabella a little longer each time, like he was memorizing her, like he was saying goodbye. "Talk to me," I said that night. Isabella was finally asleep in her crib, reinforced, monitored, guarded. We were sitting in the hallway outside her room because neither of us could bear to be far away. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking about all the ways this could go wrong." His voice was hollow. "All the scenarios where I'm not fast enough, smart enough, where they get past my men and hurt you. Hurt her." "That won't happen." "You don't know that." He looked at me, and the anguish in his eyes was devastating. "This is what you were afraid of, Gabby. This is exactly why you left. Because loving me means living with this fear. And now it's not just you. It's Isabella too. Our daughter is in danger because of who I am." "She's in danger because Carmine DeLuca is a coward who preys on children." "She's in danger because I couldn't walk away." His voice cracked. "Because I was selfish. Because I wanted you both so badly, I convinced myself I could keep you safe while staying in this life. But I can't do both. I have to choose." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying..." He closed his eyes. "I'm saying maybe you were right all along. Maybe the only way to keep you safe is to let you go. Take Isabella somewhere far from Providence. New identity, new life. My people can arrange it. You'd be protected, provided for, and DeLuca would never find you." "And you?" "I deal with DeLuca. Then I disappear from your lives. You tell Isabella I was a good man who couldn't stay. You move on. You find someone safe. Someone who can give you the life you deserve." The words felt like bullets. "You want me to take our daughter and run?" My voice was shaking. "To pretend you don't exist? To raise her without her father? I want you to be safe." He grabbed my hands. "Both of you. That's all I've ever wanted. And if my being in your life means you're not safe, then what's the point? What kind of father would I be if I let my pride get my daughter killed?" "You'd be a father who gave up." Anger was rising now, hot and fierce. "A father who let fear win. A father who taught his daughter that love means running when things get hard. Better that than a father who got her killed because he was too stubborn to see the truth." "The truth?" I stood up, pacing the hallway. "The truth is that Carmine DeLuca doesn't get to decide our future. The truth is that we spent 12 months apart and it nearly destroyed us both. The truth is that Isabella deserves her father and My voice broke. "I deserve the man I love. Not the ghost of him, not the memory. You, Matteo. I deserve you. Even if it kills you? Even if it's hard." I was crying now. "Even if it's scary? Even if we have to fight for it every single day? Because that's what love is. It's not running at the first sign of danger. It's standing together and fighting back." He stared at me like I'd just said something impossible. "You're willing to risk everything?" he asked. "Your safety? Isabella's future? All of it?" "I'm willing to fight for my family." I stepped closer. "But I need to know you're willing to fight too. Not just against DeLuca, against this life, against the idea that you have to choose between power and us. I need to know that if it comes down to it, you choose us. Every time." Silence stretched between us. Then, from the baby monitor, Isabella's cry. We both moved at the same time, but Matteo was faster. He went into the nursery, picked her up, held her against his chest. I watched from the doorway as he swayed gently, whispering to her in Italian. Words I couldn't quite hear but understood in my soul. When he turned to me, his face was different, resolved. "You're right," he said. "I'm not running. I'm not sending you away. I'm ending this. Tonight." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done the moment DeLuca threatened my family." His eyes were dark with purpose. "I'm going to remind Providence exactly who I am, and why crossing me was the last mistake Carmine DeLuca will ever make." He left at midnight. 10 men went with him, all heavily armed, all loyal. I sat in the nursery with Isabella, surrounded by guards, listening to the silence and praying to every god I'd ever heard of. The house phone rang at 2:17 a.m. I lunged for it, heart in my throat. "Matteo?" "It's done." His voice was exhausted but steady. "DeLuca's been handled. His organization is disbanded. The threat is over." Relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Everyone's fine. I'm coming home." "Matteo?" "I know what you're going to ask." He paused. "And yes, there are things I did tonight that you won't want to know about. Things I'm not proud of. But DeLuca was planning to move on Isabella tomorrow. We found the plans, the team he'd assembled. It was real, Gabby, and I stopped it the only way I know how." I closed my eyes, Isabella sleeping peacefully in my arms, and faced the truth I'd been avoiding. Loving Matteo meant accepting all of him. The good and the bad, the gentle father and the dangerous man, the morning pancakes and the midnight violence. "Come home," I said quietly. "Just come home." Always. He came through the door at 3 a.m. and I was waiting. He looked exhausted. There was blood on his shirt, not his, again, never his, and shadows under his eyes. But when he saw us, something in his expression softened. "It's really over?" I asked. "It's over." He moved closer, careful, like he was afraid I'd flinch. "But Gabby, there will always be another DeLuca, another threat, another test. I can minimize it, control it, but I can't eliminate it completely. Not without walking away from everything, and even then..." He stopped. "So I need to know, after tonight, after seeing what I'm capable of. Can you still..." I kissed him, cut off his words with my lips. My hands in his hair, Isabella between us like the miracle she was. "I love you," I said when we broke apart. "All of you, the darkness and the light, the danger and the safety. And yes, I'm scared. I'll probably always be scared. But I'm more afraid of losing this, of losing you, of Isabella growing up without her father because we were too afraid to fight for each other. I don't deserve you." "Maybe not." I managed a watery smile. "But you're stuck with us anyway." He held us both then, this dangerous, beautiful man and his family, while dawn broke over Providence and the city woke to a new day. A day where Matteo Moretti's family was untouchable. A day where love had won over fear. For now. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our home. Our home, not his, not mine, but ours. Watching Matteo teach Isabella how to clap her hands. She was 9 months old now, sitting up on her own, babbling constantly, reaching for her father the moment he walked into a room. "Brava, piccola!" Matteo laughed as she managed a wobbly clap. "Did you see that, Gabby? She's a genius." She clapped Matteo. All babies clap. "Not like that. That was exceptional clapping." He was completely serious, and I loved him for it. Things had changed after that night with DeLuca. Not overnight, not magically, but slowly, deliberately, Matteo had started restructuring his life. He'd promoted his most trusted men, delegating operations he'd once controlled directly. He'd moved his business meetings to offices downtown, keeping them separate from home. He'd invested in legitimate ventures, real estate, restaurants, a security firm. He was still Matteo Moretti, still powerful, still connected to a world that operated in shadows. But he was also a father who knew every word of Isabella's favorite bedtime story, a husband who made coffee every morning, a man who chose to be present for the small moments that made up a life. "I have something for you," he said, setting Isabella in her playpen. He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "I've been working on this for weeks." I opened it. Legal documents, business transfers, restructuring plans. "What is this?" "My exit strategy." He sat beside me at the kitchen table. "Over the next 2 years, I'm transitioning out of active leadership, turning operations over to a council. I'll still have influence, still be consulted, but I won't be the one making the calls anymore." My heart stopped. "Matteo?" "I can't walk away completely," he said honestly. "It doesn't work like that. There are too many connections, too much history. But I can step back. I can choose a different role. One that doesn't require midnight meetings and constant danger. One where I'm home for dinner. Where Isabella's biggest worry is whether I'll make it to her school play, not whether I'll come home alive." Tears blurred my vision. "You're really doing this?" "I'm really doing this." His hand found mine. "Because you were right, Gabi, about everything. I can't have it both ways. I can't be the man Providence fears and the father Isabella needs. So I'm choosing. Every single day, I'm choosing you both." "What about your legacy? Your power?" "My legacy is her." He gestured to Isabella, who was contentedly chewing on a stuffed elephant. "My power is being able to watch her grow up. The rest?" He shrugged. "It's just business." We remarried 3 months later. Not the big wedding we'd had the first time. No 6-course meals or orchestra or guest list that read like a who's who of New England crime families. Just us. Isabella, Father Dominic at St. John's Church in Federal Hill, Mrs. Chen from my old apartment building, a handful of Matteo's men who'd become something like family. I wore a simple white dress. Isabella wore a tiny version of it. Matteo cried through his vows. "I promise to choose you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Every morning, every night, every moment in between. I promise to be the father our daughter deserves and the husband you've always needed. I promise that when the darkness comes, because it will, I'll face it with you, not alone. And I promise that this time, when you're scared, you won't have to pretend you're not, because I'm scared too, and that's okay. We'll be scared together." I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat, so I just nodded and kissed him, while Isabella babbled approvingly from Mrs. Chen's arms. Father Dominic pronounced us husband and wife. Again. But this time felt different. This time felt like a choice, not a leap. This time felt like forever. Have you ever had a second chance at something you thought was lost? What did you learn about yourself through that experience? Tell us in the comments below. That night, after Isabella was asleep and the house was quiet, Matteo and I sat on the balcony of our bedroom. The same balcony where I'd once told him I was leaving, where I'd packed a bag while he was out and slipped away like a ghost. Full circle. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Giving up so much for this?" "Never. No hesitation. Gabby, I had power and money and respect, but I was empty. I was surviving, not living. You and Isabella? You gave me a reason to be more than what everyone expected. You gave me permission to be human. You were always human. Maybe, but I'd forgotten what that meant. He pulled me closer. You reminded me that being strong isn't about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and showing up anyway. Fighting anyway. Loving anyway. I rested my head on his shoulder, listened to the sounds of Providence settling into night. Somewhere out there, Matteo still had influence, still had connections, still had a past that would never completely disappear. But here, in this moment, he was just a man who loved his wife, who adored his daughter, who chose family over empire, and that was enough, more than enough. They tell you divorce is an ending, and maybe it is, for some people. But for us, it was just a pause, a breath between chapters, a moment when we both had to decide what mattered more, safety or love, fear or faith, running or fighting. We chose fighting, we chose love, and we chose each other over and over until it became the easiest choice we'd ever made. Isabella is 2 now. She calls Matteo Papa and thinks he hung the moon. She doesn't know about his past, about the man he used to be, about the empire he walked away from for her. Someday, we'll tell her. We'll explain that love is complicated, that good people can make hard choices, that family is worth fighting for even when the fight is scary. But for now, she just knows that her father makes the best pancakes on Sunday mornings, that her mother sings off-key lullabies, that their home is filled with laughter and safety and the kind of love that rewrites destinies. Matteo still keeps his phone on at night, still has security at the house, still meets with his counsel once a month to ensure Providence stays stable. But he's home for dinner, makes it to pediatrician appointments, reads bedtime stories with different voices for each character. He's present. And that's what love looks like in our world. Not perfect, not safe, not without complications, but real, honest, worth every risk. Last week, I found him in Isabella's room at midnight, just watching her sleep. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Just thinking." He didn't take his eyes off our daughter. About how close I came to losing this. To letting fear and pride cost me everything that matters. But you didn't. Because you were brave enough to give me another chance. He looked at me then. Because you loved me enough to fight for us when I was ready to give up. Because 12 months after our divorce, you made a choice that changed all our lives. You made a choice too, I reminded him. When that hospital called, you could have walked away, claimed I was lying, refused to be involved. But you didn't. You showed up, and you kept showing up every single day after. For her, he said simply. For you. For us. I moved beside him, looked down at Isabella, sleeping peacefully in her crib. Our miracle, our second chance, our reason for believing that broken things can be mended. "I love you, Matteo Moretti," I whispered. "I love you, Gabriella Moretti." He kissed my forehead. Always have. Always will. We stood there in the darkness, 2 people who'd been divorced, separated, broken, and somehow found our way back to each other. Because that's what real love does. It doesn't give up. It doesn't run. It fights. It stays. It chooses, again and again, even when choosing is hard. 12 months after our divorce, a hospital made a call that changed everything. But the real change? That came from 2 people deciding that their story wasn't over. That some endings are really just new beginnings. That love, real love, is worth every risk. They tell you divorce is an ending, but sometimes it's just the pause before a better beginning. Mine came with a phone call at 2 a.m., a daughter I'd hidden, and a man who proved that second chances aren't about erasing the past. They're about choosing a better future. His name was Matteo Moretti, and he taught me that the bravest thing you can do isn't walk away from danger. It's walk toward love, even when love is dangerous. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and click on the next video. It is darker, deeper, and even more unforgettable. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story, and comment your country or city. Your support helps us create more contents like this.